Okay, ladies and gentlemen, yes, it's going to be sort of one of those things again. It's been an on-off thing all throughout the month of April, and as difficult it is to put it, the recent news about the Prime Minister posing a very sharp stomp on sick payments, and then there's all these other news about trying to get as many people who are sick and probably not professionally trained into work, and basically put, if we have jobs available for you, jobs that you may not particularly like and you may not want to do, and you simply have to do them, well, and if you say no, your benefits is going to get stopped. Well, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, because you could sort of suggest why they've done this. It's the idea to get the economy moving and stuff like that. But as a result, ladies and gentlemen, it's again. Listen, when I was unemployed, when the first job I got after being unemployed, they posed the question to me about whether I wanted it, and I jumped at the chance immediately. Because, to be honest, at that point, this was like middle of July, and to be honest, with the whole thing with COVID, and it was becoming like boring to say the least. I mean, I kept myself occupied looking for work and tried to make myself useful when I was unemployed and stuff like that. And this is something that I feel like the papers and people seem to forget, is that there are people who are unemployed, there are people who are on the sick and who are unemployed, and guess what? They don't like it either. It hasn't actually occurred to some people that, guess what? They don't like the idea of being unemployed. They don't like the idea of just being kept waiting about and having to apply for everything at other people's convenience. They don't like the idea that they have to do jobs that they don't want, as opposed to the things that they truly set out to do. I know it's one of those things where it feels like it goes without saying, but you know what? Why would you want to do a job that you don't like, or you're not professionally trained for, and one that even you can see for yourself has no benefits or merits to it, and isn't going to make you long-term successful in any way, shape or form? A dead-end job is, I think, the phrase they call it. And it stands to reason, ladies and gentlemen, and this is it's going to create an entire different tidal wave of problems for this government with the way it's going. And I'll tell you exactly, and it's probably not the sort of tide wave that Rishi Sunak or this government can possibly anticipate. It's not going to be a tide wave of people being struck off benefits, and you're going to be seeing a lot more destitute people, possibly even more homeless people. That might be possibly a subsidiary side effect, but I feel like when you're pushed in this situation and when you know that things are desperate, then you know what? It's just, sometimes some people just willfully put up with it. I mean, hell, if it means that people can get back into work at all, then you know what it means. But bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, you can always trace this down to the fact that quite a lot of migrants were more than willing to accept the work whenever this sort of thing was pushed out, because, again, it meant they could bring their families across and they could actually start a better life in this country. But again, we all know sort of how that's sort of turned out to be, is that it's openly discouraged one type of person from trying to claim work, and it's forcing it on somebody else, which I don't really need to explain to you the problems that this has caused, and well, here it is. Meanwhile, you've got to also wonder again about the large population of this country who are not fit for work, i.e. who suffer from illnesses, whether physical or mental. I remember one point when I was when I was at the job centre about 2 years ago, and one person came in who I think was suffering from either multiple scoliosis or was suffering from some sort of debilitating condition in which he had to use an electric wheelchair. And he was still required to come down and speak to a work coach. And I even said uh, privately to the same lad last time, is that you know, that is this really what this country has come to? Is that you can obviously tell he's he why are we why is it compulsory for him to make the journey all the way down here when unassisted, and people, what are you expecting people like him to find work? How, I mean, I know the government suggested things like work from home, but what about the arrangements that's going to be made for? I don't even want to get into it anymore. It's the subject's far too depressing, as you can understand. And then, of course, well, you want to know how I think personally you could solve this problem almost from like the word go. I could almost like present to you a case I've sort of prepared in the last couple of minutes whilst we've been having this conversation. Is that how are you, even for the cases of people who are suffering from like mental disabilities, or those who have sort of had it a little bit rougher in life than people like you and me? How on earth do encourage them to find work? Otherwise, worse things will befall. Well, you start by not treating them as mere cogs in the capitalist machine. What you do is treat them like self-respecting human beings. You don't treat them as cases. You treat them as human beings again. And once you start treating people like human beings again, they'll start to think of themselves as self-respecting human beings again. And it also starts by, they can even be encouraged to even find work. Not work necessarily for the sake of working, as this government would like you to believe, but work of which a man or a woman can enjoy the actual benefit. It may be objected that, as nice as it would seem for there to be a job in which a level of self-respect and abasement can exist in such a way that it wouldn't matter what it was, but as long as a person can enjoy it. But even so, if there is stuff out there and there's absolutely, a ways for which a person to earn a respectable living, then I fancy it should be so. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I've had the best success in my life, ladies and gentlemen, because I spent 35 months of my life working as a COVID-19 touchpoint cleaner in a major building, and guess what? I worked 65 hours a week, only having the Sunday off, but you know what? I enjoyed the job all the same, because I made a lot of new friends, and actually it helped pass the time, and there seemed to be a lot of also time in the middle of doing it where I can sort of almost relax and refresh my mind and think that actually there was some benefit to what I was doing, because I prevented a lot of people from becoming sick, and that was basically within the job description. In all the time I worked there, we had no fatalities from COVID whatsoever. If it was more than one, it would probably be an issue, but even so, I'm glad to have done it, and even more so, it's just sort of, I didn't expect that to happen, but guess what? 35 months of my life went by in a place like that, and I enjoyed my time. I was earning good money, and I just simply got on with it. I was more than willing to do it as well. It's just what do you expect, eh? Then, of course, with my new job, and it's that sort of thing, is that, well, this is sort of has the reverse effect, because I get paid less, but the hours are even more antisocial, and the place I makes a tremendous profit, but but people like me and the other people that work there don't really get much in the way of, they're not going to get their actual share. Which, to be honest, it's when I'm like now back in the real world, and all of a sudden I realize what some people have to put up with in the real world. It's the sort of thing that makes me wonder whether or not it was just a better idea if I just pursued something different, or whether or not it was just worth taking a step back or not. Because here's the thing: in April, earlier this month, I worked 10 days in a row. It didn't seem... Now, I know people might argue that can they get away with doing stuff like that? Well, they did it in the way that which I started work on Wednesday, and I had 2 days off earlier that week, so Monday, Tuesday, and then worked all the way until Saturday and Sunday of the following week. So by all accounts, absolutely, they were more than okay to it, because it didn't violate my contract or anything like that. But even so, it seemed like a particularly, I see what you've done, and it doesn't make it any less, well, scummy the way they've done it. And you know what they're now having to make me do now? Is that for the next 8 days is when I'll have to be going back into work, all on night shift. Even today, I mean, it's nearly 7 o'clock, and I have to start work at 10 o'clock and finish it at 6 in the morning. And then that night, I'll have to go to work at about 8 o'clock and finish at 4 in the morning. And then for the next 6 days, it's all 7 till 3 in the morning. I mean, I don't really particularly like the idea of a night shift, to be honest. I mean, now that I've had an actual taste of it and realised that it's basically, well, the lights never really get dimmed down where I work, and I'm just sort of caught in a bit of a situation where I feel like, yes, absolutely, I'd more than be willing to apply for somewhere else, but basically nearly a whole year has gone by since I've been at my new place. 10 months I've been at this new place now, and, well, I've done my best to apply for, jobs for the Royal Mail, but every single time I've applied for the Royal Mail, and it's the same job they go for, is that I'll apply for it, I won't hear anything back, and then 2 weeks later they'll post the same job again, which suggests to me the idea is that they're not really going to actually give the job away. They're just going to advertise it, probably just so that they can show that they have, and continue to say no, no, no to every candidate that applies for it, which I don't know, that there's got to be some problems with that, because why would you bother advertising a job if you weren't actually going to give somebody the job? It doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, yeah, but even so, I still think that probably I'm better off than many other people who are in not necessarily a great situation. I just wish that, to be honest, that's the sort of issue I feel like this that we're in right now, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that the working class are being incredibly put upon. People do incredibly, disparaging and jobs that they don't really want to do and have no interest in doing it, and as a result they put in the work you would expect from somebody who doesn't like their job very much. And, well, at what point are things going to get better? Because, well, it's the sort of thing that could drive people to the brink of insanity by doing the same thing over and over again, except expecting and demanding more and giving back less and less. But as I've come to know, ladies and gentlemen, over these last few months, is the idea that if you are depressed, if you suffer from anxiety, if you suffer from dark thoughts, if you suffer from this, that, and the other, you know what I feel like the mantra is right now? Is that these are entirely things that are your fault, and therefore you have got to sort out yourself. I honestly, honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that to be true, the more I think about it, because there hasn't been any evidence to the contrary to suggest that I'm wrong, but because, well, where am I meant to find the time to see a GP to even talk about stuff like this? Where am I meant to find the time to, focus my mind on any one particular thing? I've not had a good night's sleep for weeks because my mind is just sort of, it is incredibly hard to switch off, because I'm either working on things I want to make an actual career for myself in, I'm either at work, or I'm just trying to find as much amusements as I can outside of it, let alone spend time with my family. I would honestly prefer just a 9 to 5 job in which I could actually come home and actually see my family and feel like I shouldn't have to be ashamed for suggesting such a thing. Which, that might be another very grave situation we find ourselves in, ladies and gentlemen, is the idea is that, we are being put to shame by things that we want, things we're being honest about, and they just don't want to know. They don't want to know about people who suffer from issues that are out of their control, because people will. The idea is that some people will say anything to get out of work, and it's not nearly as simple as that. But if there is something I'm going to just openly state for the record, in case people think I'm lying about this, is that I've known this song and dance for a very long time, ladies and gentlemen. I've known the ins and outs of issues like these, and I honestly don't really know what exactly Rishi Sunak or anybody else is expected to say when, well, people are not going to be very happy about this from all sides. From people who are desperate to get into work, people are not happy with their position, people are not happy with the way that they get treated at their job, or there's like just the whole situation right now. It screams of one thing and one thing only: you will do as we say, and if you turn around and say no, then that's it. You're done. You're finished. You're blacklisted. You're history. Which I don't really feel like I like that idea. I don't like the idea of, people who are pushed into a corner and, well, it's only going to result in them biting back, because why else would they not? When you treat people with this level of contentment and conviction that some people do have for years, you shouldn't be surprised when they start biting back, because, well, what do you expect out of this? This is the big concern I have for, myself and probably a lot of people, is that as bad as things are, and as much as I'm trying to make something out of this, I don't think people care or want to know, because there is no time to know, because everybody is caught in a muddle between work, trying to balance out a family, trying to raise a family, trying to start a family, trying to get into a house of their own, or try to just make sense of wherever they're going in life. But even so, there are things that there are much worse evils going on in this world, ladies and gentlemen. But they are there. But that's that's for them to sort out. I'm talking about what's going on here right now, and well, there we go. That's all I've got to say about that. Basically, a confused muddle to say that people who don't understand should not be going around saying that they do understand, because Rishi Sunak doesn't understand because he has no interest in understanding. I mean, this is the same man who went to a soup kitchen before Christmas and asked a homeless man what business did he own. What? How do you expect to say somebody who is that out of touch that he knows what's best for the country? Nothing at all.